Hey, what's up guys, Matt here. You wanted it, Apple delivered it. This is the biggest and best iPhone yet, but is it all it's hyped up to be? This is my review of the iPhone 6 Plus. So starting off, when comparing to previous iPhones, this one is huge. It's not only huge for an iPhone, but huge for any phone. It's pretty big in your hand, and you most likely won't be able to use it with one, but this is Apple's phablet, and when you get past the size, there's a lot to like here. In terms of build, it's made extremely well. It has aluminum on the back and glass up front, and it's a unibody construction. So when you feel the glass, it curves around to meet the back of the phone in a seamless manner, making it feel like one piece. Now the back is also curved, which makes it feel good in the hand, but it's also rather slippery. This is actually one phone that feels better in a case when using it, which is interesting. This phone is also really thin. It comes in at 7.1 millimeters thick, which is slimmer than the iPhone 5S, but just a tad thicker than the normal 6. The thinness definitely helps with the overall size of the phone when it's in your hand and makes for an overall pleasing experience. Now this thinness does cause the camera to stick out a little bit past the body, but this really doesn't seem to cause any problems. It doesn't sit completely flat on a table, but it doesn't really rock when you press it, so it's kind of a non-issue. Oh, and no, mine's not bent either. The buttons on this are also changed from where they normally are. On the left we have the volume rocker and mute switch, but now the lock button is located on the right, so it's easier to get to. On the bottom we have the headphone jack, lightning port, and speaker. Now the speaker is improved over the 5S. It's loud and sounds decent, but nowhere near as good as the front facing on the HTC One, but it is good. One thing though is that it is extremely easy to cover, and when you cover it, it pretty much mutes the entire phone, so just gotta look out for that. On the front, we have the home button that also acts as Touch ID, and now it is even more sensitive and accurate. And I actually have yet to have it read my fingerprint incorrectly out of the thousands of times I've unlocked my phone, so that's really great to see. But the main attraction up front is the 5.5-inch 1080p display, which is incredible. It doesn't have the highest density on the market, but it is by far the highest quality screen I have used. The colors are near perfect, it gets really bright, and the viewing angles are excellent. From any way you look at it, this screen is impressive, but it's also big. Apple implemented something they call reachability into the phone so that it makes it easier to reach the top. All you have to do is double tap, not press, on the home button, and the whole screen comes down to give you a better reach. I didn't really find myself using it too much, mainly because I forgot that I could, but I really think there is more that can be done here to make this phone easier to use, especially in one hand, but it's a start. Apple also took this extra screen space and allowed the phone to be used in landscape mode as well. There aren't really too many differences in usability when going from landscape to portrait I find, but there definitely could be in the future with third-party apps, and I like that you can do this on this new iPhone. It just opens up the possibilities for developers to add new features. Speaking of developers, one thing with this new screen is that for the moment, the majority of apps are just scaled up because developers have yet to update their apps. This is an issue that'll be resolved in time, but for the moment, a lot of apps just look fuzzy and really huge, but hopefully this will begin to get fixed soon. Of course, this is running the latest version of Apple's software iOS 8. There's not too much different here on the surface, but now we get widgets in the notification center, which is a nice addition, and now apps can talk to each other, and we also get third-party keyboards. But of course, this phone runs beautifully. There are no hiccups in performance, and everything launches very quickly. The internals, a dual-core 1.4 GHz Apple A8 chip, and the 1 GB of RAM seem laughable compared to other high-end phones on the market. But because of Apple's vertical integration, this phone can outperform most, if not all, of the competition, but it's never really been about specs for Apple. Speaking of specs not really mattering, the camera. This is the new 8 megapixel iSight camera. Yeah, 8 megapixels, but don't let that number fool you. This is the best camera on a phone right now. Yep, I'm calling it, the best. It doesn't have as many features as a lot of the competition, but what it does have is consistency and just downright amazing quality. The photo app takes pictures extremely quickly, and what's great here is that when you take a picture, you kind of know what you will expect. It's gonna look good. The colors are vibrant and accurate, and the 6 Plus has optical image stabilization, so the picture is sharper in even lower light conditions. There's a lot of processing going on to make these pictures look the way they do, but this A8 chip really does a mighty fine job with doing so. Another great point of the camera is the video. Now you can shoot 1080p at 30 frames and 60 frames per second, and you can also now shoot slow motion video at up to 240 frames, which is awesome. I always want to go around and shoot everything in slow-mo. It just makes everything look so cool and unique. The 1080p video is superb as well. The best feature here is the stabilization by far. It's a mixture of software and hardware, but the video turns out extremely smooth, even if you're shaking. But overall, this camera is solid, and if it's the main reason you buy a phone, this is definitely the one to get. Now, all of these things are great, but the biggest issue with previous iPhones was battery life. I'm happy to report that yes, the battery life is good. I can easily go through a day of heavy use, lots of texting, watching videos, accessing Twitter, playing a few games, and get home with around 20% left. Finally, an iPhone with great battery life. So overall, this phone is great. The real question here is whether or not it's too big. If you can deal with the size, then this is a real contender for being the best phone out right now. But if you can't, then its smaller brother, the iPhone 6, is probably where it's at. This is an iPhone. It's not perfect by any means, but if you wanted a big iPhone, it's here. And hopefully the great experience will only get better.